Welcome everyone to the SARDI Dialogue Series. We are so glad you could join us today. My name is Komal Bazaz-Smith. I am the Project Director for the Digital Connectivity and Cybersecurity Partnership Initiative. This initiative is a suite of projects and it's run through USAID. DAI is implementing this set of projects and SARDI is one of those 5 projects. I'd like to go through a quick run of the agenda first. So first we'll hear opening remarks from Mary Tyler Holmes, the Deputy Director of the Indo-Pacific Office. I will then talk a little bit about SARDI and hopefully get you all excited about some of the work that we're doing. We will then hear from a series of government and private sector experts and thought leaders, including a panel discussion on connectivity concerns and opportunities for MSMEs. Throughout, we will be asking you to participate in polls that will ask you to analyze and apply the insights you've heard from each speaker. We encourage you to send questions in the chat function throughout the event, and we have folks capturing those questions. We will do our very best to respond to each of them during the Q&A, but if we don't, we're happy for you to reach out to us after the webinar so we can continue the discussion. Our USAID colleagues will conclude the event, and please watch for follow-up after the webinar, where we'll be sending you the SARDI fact sheet and about upcoming events or webinars in the future. We would very much like to stay engaged with you. I will also take a moment to introduce our facilitator of events, Christy Koster, who is part of our DAI team managing SARDI's cross-regional and Bangladesh initiatives. So I have the honor of introducing Mary Tyler Holmes. Ms. Holmes is the Deputy Director of USAID's Indo-Pacific Office. She has served in education and democracy and governance roles and postings in Africa, the Balkans, South and Central Asia, as well as Washington. Ms. Holmes has over 20 years of experience in the international development sector in strategic planning, project design and implementation, organizational change management, assessments and evaluations, human and institutional capacity building, international religious freedom, and human rights, as well as civil military cooperation. Prior to joining USAID, Ms. Holmes worked at the U.S. Department of State, the U.S. Senate, and for implementing partners. Ms. Holmes obtained her master's degree in international education and development from George Washington University and her bachelor's degree at the American University in International Relations and Chinese Studies. She matriculated at Jingmao University in Beijing, China, and studied Mandarin. She also obtained a certification in counterterrorism from Department of Defense's Joint Strategic Operations University. Ms. Holmes speaks fluent Farsi and Dari, as well as basic Mandarin and Arabic. She considers Montana home. Thank you so much, and I really hope you enjoy the event. Mary Tyler, I will hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. Good evening to those calling in from the Asia Pacific region, and good morning to those of you dialing in from Washington, D.C. We're honored to have you all here with us today. To our speakers, thank you for taking the time to address this group, and we look forward to your insightful remarks. I am the Deputy Director for the Indo-Pacific Office at USAID in India. The U.S. Agency for International Development, also known as USAID, is the U.S. government's lead international development agency. Today, we'll be taking a deep dive into the issues of the last mile connectivity. That is, connecting end users to the internet in our region. According to the International Telecommunications Union, while 100% of urban areas in the Asia-Pacific region are covered by a mobile broadband network, only 89% of rural areas are actually covered. The Global System for Mobile Communication Association's State of Mobile Internet Connectivity Report from 2021 for the region highlighted 2 kinds of gaps. The usage gap, that is, the 61% of people in the region who now live in areas with internet connectivity, but without the resources to use it, and the connectivity gap, the 5% of people who have zero connectivity at all. However, South Asia's burgeoning digital ecosystem is born from an inspired vision for a digitized future, which holds key lessons for many other nations within the Indo-Pacific region and beyond. Here, in the increasingly digitized South Asia region, governments, as well as the private sector, and social sectors have recognized the need to close both the usage and connectivity gaps to ensure that all communities are connected enough to have a fair chance at participating in the digital economy. Our distinguished panel of speakers will speak from great experience about their roles in addressing these gaps. Just to give you a brief introduction of digital connectivity and the cybersecurity partnership, the Digital Connectivity and Cybersecurity Partnership is a U.S. whole of government initiative launched in July of 2018 that USAID is actively supporting. Its primary focus is to promote the expansion of an open, inclusive, reliable, and secure internet, build partners' capacity to address shared threats through engagement with the private sector, government, and civil society, and make citizens and small and medium-sized enterprises in both rural and urban areas more digitally savvy and safe from cyber threats. There are activities in over 17 countries around the world, from South Asia, Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America on this program. Finally, I want to talk to you with great pride about our work with SARDI, the South Asia Regional Digital Initiative. To support the goals of the Digital Connectivity and Cybersecurity Partnership, USAID launched the South Asia Regional Digital Initiative, better known as SARDI, to improve digital connectivity, digital literacy, and cybersecurity in the South Asia region, working with the private sector and civil society. The SARDI Dialogue Series intends to enhance the ability of both rural and urban MSMEs to participate more fully and safely in the digital economy, and raise awareness among both rural and urban MSMEs regarding digital policies. We hope to continue our dialogue with thought leaders, policymakers, and industry experts and MSMEs in the region to share their thoughts, experiences, and resources on connecting the very last mile of users to opportunities to participate in the digital economy. Thank you again, and I hope that you enjoy the program.
Thank you, Mary Tyler, for those remarks, and thank you for joining us. As Komal mentioned, my name is Christy Koster. I'm one of the program managers on the South Asia Regional Digital Initiative with DAI, and I'll be emceeing the event today. So great to see everyone joining, and appreciate you putting in the chat your hellos and where you're from. I'm going to actually hand it back over to Komal now to give a little bit more information about the SARDI initiative.
Thanks so much, Mary and Christy. Hi again, everyone. My name is Komal Smith, and as I mentioned before, I lead a suite of projects that fall under the larger umbrella of the Digital Connectivity and Cybersecurity Partnership Initiative, DCCP. DCCP is an interagency initiative that is chaired by USAID and the State Department and works with partner countries to support the development of communications infrastructure, promote transparent regulatory policies for open, competitive markets, and build partner cybersecurity capacity to address shared threats through engagement with the private sector, government, and civil society. DCCP is now active in over 18 countries and is implementing over $20 million worth of activities and continues to grow. SARDI is one of those projects and works across the South Asia region. We work to find ways to engage a wide variety of users' voices in the development of our policies, as well as working with our target groups in the SME, CSO, private sector, and academic sector to become more digitally savvy and cyber safe by increasing public awareness to engage on digital policy issues in ways that are meaningful to them across the various projects that we work on across the globe. SARDI works towards improving digital connectivity in the South Asia region and strengthening the private sector and civil society's digital capacity and their ability to engage on digital and ICT policy issues. We do this by working across 3 different levels of activities: digital connectivity, digital upskilling, and policy engagement. For example, we're working to support digital upskilling across the region. SARDI's upskilling work focuses specifically on women-led organizations and micro and small businesses, developing curriculum that enables them to connect online, earn their livelihoods through digital or e-commerce platforms, market their products, protect themselves against cyber and disinformation threats, and expand their clientele. On the policy engagement side, our activities focus on awareness raising and advocacy skills building for urban youth and women-led small and medium enterprises and civil society organizations. We work to help them translate digital policies into action. The focus of this work is helping them SMEs and CSOs better understand, comply with, take advantage of, and think critically about the technology policy environment which governs their businesses and organizations' actions, while also trying to develop their skills to advocate and articulate opinions about key ICT policy issues. There are laws being developed around cybersecurity, 5G, data localization, data protection, data governance, etc. And each of these laws have implications for their SMEs and CSOs. The awareness raising and advocacy skill development hopes to create a platform to enable the target SMEs and CSOs to operate more efficiently and effectively, to advocate for policies that work with them and for them with the support of industry associations, take advantage of beneficial public incentives and programs while complying with all of the policy guidelines. We will also collaborate closely with the private sector to expand the reach of digital governance initiatives and to leverage their catalytic role in bridging the digital gender divide. This work hopes to create a strong feedback loop to the policymakers to inform them of the real life impact of the digital policies on the micro and cottage industries that make up the bulk of the businesses in the region. This is the precise focus of today's webinar and what we hope will be the initiation of this feedback loop and conversation. On the digital connectivity side of things, many regional governments are demonstrating commitment and understanding that enabling digital access and last mile connectivity will propel inclusive social and economic well-being across the society. For example, the government of India recently approved a framework for the proliferation of public Wi-Fi networks through the PM Wi-Fi Access Network Interface, the PM-WANI scheme. This initiative aims to elevate wireless internet connectivity in India by leveraging the public Wi-Fi network for delivery of broadband services. SARDI is implementing an activity strengthening the last mile delivery of broadband services by training women entrepreneurs, CDOs, and women self-help groups on how to take advantage of the PM-WANI scheme and become providers themselves of Wi-Fi services to their businesses and communities at large. This will increase the beneficiaries' digital capacity, strengthen and build the organization's capacities in digital services, and improve connectivity and access for these women and their communities. In addition, women who own, manage, and operate internet services for communities greatly benefit from increased long-term livelihood skills and market opportunities, which in turn increase their standing in their communities. In each of these three activities, we push to ensure that there is a constant feedback and connection points across these types of activities, so that we're not only working to achieve goals in each of the three focus areas, but we're also ensuring that the work helps enable and mutually reinforces what we're doing in all of the areas. In this way, we work to build a strong digital ecosystem that improves digital connectivity in the South Asia region, strengthening the private sector and civil society's digital capacity to capitalize on the opportunities and mitigate against cyber risks and threats that digital transformation presents, and empowers them to engage more effectively on ICT policy issues. We invite you to join us in this work, and we really do hope that you contact us. And now back to Christy for the next piece in our event.
Thanks so much, Komal. I am biased, but I think that SARDI is doing some amazing work in the digital sphere. It's great to hear more about that. For additional information around SARDI, you can reach out to our team. We'll be sure to share contact information in the chat towards the end of the event, and we would love to hear from you. We also encourage you to ask questions throughout today's event by typing directly into the chat box that you see next to the video. With the chat box, everyone can see and answer questions, and we hope to have a dynamic conversation going on there while we're also listening to our speakers. I'm now pleased to introduce you to our next session, Viewpoint on Challenges and Opportunities from the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology. And for this session, please join me in welcoming Dr. Dinesh Tyagi, Managing Director of Common Services Centers, E-Governance Services India Limited. Dr. Tyagi works in Indian Administrative Services, where he's held a number of positions throughout his career. He served as the Secretary of Education and Principal Secretary of Finance for Tripura State, and worked as Director in the Banking Division and Custodian of the Special Court. Dr. Tyagi has served as board Director for several financial institutions, including the Syndicate Bank, United Bank of India, and Indian Bank. In addition, Dr. Tyagi was Chief Executive Officer for Infrastructure Leasing and Financial Services Limited. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Dinesh Tyagi.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you so much. And at the outset, let me thank SARDI for inviting me to share our viewpoint on last mile connectivity. Government of India has been taking a lot of initiatives the Digital India vision of the Government of India actually envisages the empowerment, the enablement, and the inclusion of everyone, every citizen in the country. The basic foundation on which this digital inclusion, empowerment, enablement has to take place revolves around access to quality and easy access to internet. The internet in urban areas, as mentioned initially, has been almost covered. A lot of people in urban area access good quality internet, but rural area still remains a challenge. But the steps being taken by Government of India to extend connectivity to rural India is the program called Bharatnet. The Bharatnet program envisages that there will be a optical fiber network available to initially were designed to connect 250,000 of these last mile administrative units called panchayats, and further now recently been announced saying that they will connect all the 600,000 villages in the country. So once the intention to provide optical fiber network to every village in the country has been initiated properly by the Government of India in its policy document and is now under implementation at various stages. The first phase of Bharatnet connected 120,000 of these panchayat locations, and that's been completed. That means what? That means the internet fiber, the optical fiber to provide connectivity in these 120,000 panchayats is available, and these villages can access good quality internet. There are, of course, some challenges because of the involvement of few players. It is not that one agency is implementing. There are three agencies which are involved: the Bharat Broadband Network Limited, which owns part of the fiber and the infrastructure provided; BSNL, which is also having part of the fiber provided for the project; and of course, the last mile is presently being handled by the Common Service Center, which I represent. Common service centers are digital access points, about 400,000 of them across the country, and geographically equitably spread, one in almost every panchayat. And these are manned, operated, and managed by a local entrepreneur who belongs to the same community, and therefore his credibility is high and delivers digital service, digital various government and non-government service digitally to those people who live in that area. These last mile access point entrepreneurs, digital access entrepreneurs, the common service operators, which we call them village level entrepreneurs, are managing the last mile of Bharatnet. The organization also has got an ISP license where they're able to sell internet to customers through that point. Even during the COVID time, when this project is under implementation, the appetite for internet for rural customers has significantly enhanced. There are about 2,000 terabytes per month. That is the consumption in these limited locations, which has been presently made available. And we see that with the improvement in quality and further improvement in the requirements, people will be able to access. But that fact is very well established that there is a great need and demand for data consumption in rural India. And therefore, quality internet service has to be provided in order to meet those requirements. The Bharatnet phase 2 has been started, and under the phase 2, now the new model for phase 2 envisages a public-private partnership where the private partner will try and create access to at the local level, and people can access the connectivity in that sense. So Bharatnet is one of the significant projects of the Government of India to try and create last mile internet access to citizens. And this is neutral. Any service provider can utilize it. So therefore, it's easily available to all the telcos who want to use and create internet access to citizen rural India. The other point or other opportunity is that there are about 650,000 towers in this country, and these towers, these telcos towers, out of which about 250,000 are in rural India. So 150,000 are in rural India, and these most of them, 40% of these are fiberized. So the towers which are fiberized and exist in rural India can cover about approximately 100,000, more than 156,000 villages. So with the use of tower and fiberization, with the availability of these towers, it is easily possible to try and extend connectivity to the customers, and they are still doing it, and they can further do it. With the new emphasis and the potential for enhancing the fiberization and improving the quality of towers, with 650,000 towers, out of which 256,000 being in rural India, it is possible to extend connectivity through also this means, through the existing tower network. They can also support them. So you have a fiber network to Bharatnet. You have also a tower network of telcos existing in rural India, which can also connect all the villages across the country. And that, of course, will fulfill most of the requirements of creating an access. Still, what some challenges do exist. As I say, one of the challenges is the fiberization. There is a capital required, and upgrading the quality of these towers. If that happens, it is possible, and all these telcos will find out opportunities for accessing the large number of customers in rural India and create value proposition for both themselves as well as for the citizen. As I mentioned, the citizens in rural India are using this for various purposes. Our study and our analysis show that most of them, of course, start using these are young generation people who live in villages. They actually go to YouTube and do an access for YouTube, and they also access some government services which are available. Some of them, a fairly good percentage, look at the education content which is available, because the schools in COVID were closed and they were using internet for school for studies purposes and enhancing their knowledge. There are, of course, examples of work from home where some of the people started doing work from home using the internet. They left the places and went to the village. So there's a transformation. Internet will actually create not only inclusive society, will redefine the way the works are done. Work from home will become a norm, and people will prefer to live in villages, good environment, good ecology, and good food quality. They'll prefer to live in those villages and do that part of the work. This trend is there, and this is happening. So there probably will be also the pace of urbanization will get slowed down once you create good quality internet access to rural India. The third option which is available is, of course, the new technology on satellites, which are now being started. We have some of these SpaceX has got into and saying that they want to set up satellites and provide connectivity. There also OneWeb, which has started the satellite connectivity for these will meet largely the requirements of difficult areas where even the fiber becomes a problem. Either the maintenance of fiber becomes a problem, or laying and extending fiber to small hamlets, because in India there are small hamlets which are available with small populations and long distances. It may be probably difficult for them to extend fiber to every hamlet. You may extend to a panchayat, but to extend to every hamlet or in a village, where in some areas will be very difficult. The satellite bandwidth or satellite expectations of satellite bandwidth will be a great opportunity for extending that. Of course, the constraint, which is now they need licensing a permission. Also, with the satellite bandwidth now being made available to individual customers, if that happens, so and as quickly it's going to happen, once that happens, they can work what is called the PM Wani. The person who buys the satellite bandwidth in the village level will be then without a license requirement or without all those cumbersome process, we should be able to, through a PM Wani program, should be able to try and extend this to the various customers in the villages itself. So it looks very attractive. The opportunities for us in the CSC, we always say that the Common Service Center entrepreneur is the first user of internet in a village, because he has, of course, a great interest, because his entire business proposition emanates from the facts of availability of good quality connectivity. So when he has the interest, his ability to manage the network is also very good, because he has also he then manages, and we have seen this large scale happening around a large scale number of people getting employed and trained and skilled in order to maintain the fiber. We do believe that internet will also create a lot of opportunities. Our firm belief is that 600,000 villages will be able to create 1.2 million jobs for relating if we create good quality internet access to citizen in rural India. So employment generation, inclusive society, the work from home cultures, and of course, enablement of people and empowerment of people is a dream which will come true with the quality access of internet to every citizen in this country. Thank you so much for inviting, and I'm grateful for allowing me to share some of the thoughts and the existing opportunities which are in rural India.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tyagi, for those illuminating remarks. I will now introduce our next section, and that is a lightning talk with Mr. Amir Riaz. Syed Amir Riaz is a program officer at the International Telecommunication Union, working at the ITU's Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. He serves as the regional thematic lead on digital network infrastructure and emergency telecom and is the geographic focal point for ITU membership from North to East Asia. Mr. Riaz has been working to develop ICT capabilities in the region through activities at the national, sub-regional, and regional levels. He has implemented several ICT development initiatives and programs in partnership with other international and regional organizations. His recent work has been in the areas of ICT market regulation, policies, and wireless connectivity. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Riaz.
Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you on this occasion. My name is Amir. I'm part of the ITU team in the Regional Office for Asia and the Pacific. I will share with you some of our views on the last mile connectivity and how we are approaching in a development way on ICTs. First, to define the problem, we have a problem in Asia and the Pacific of connectivity. The number of individuals that are using the internet is way low, and it's even lower than the average of the world. Although we have achieved some growth over the years, but still the problem persists. And if we take a deep down, one of the issues that we see is that if you focus the South Asia compared to the all others, the problem of number of users on the internet is much higher than the others. Now this could be due to the affordability as well, but in our experience there are challenges in the last mile connectivity as well. So how we approach this is that we now have different areas of connectivity, different options that are available. Unlike the wired one that we have traditionally, we have the satellite capabilities now, and the wireless and the mobile services are also there. So this gives us an opportunity not to approach from one end, one solution, but also the competition amongst the different operators of different technologies helps in keeping the affordability issue in check as well. In ITU, we are approaching this in a more informed way, in a way that we have been working on broadband transmission maps over the years. We have tried to map out all the connectivity on the terrestrial and also on the under the submarine cables. We have also mapped microwaves, satellite stations, and internet exchange points, and we are using it for our different initiatives. This also helps us in defining the infrastructure for cost estimation for our different projects. One of the toolkit that we are using is, we call it the last mile connectivity toolkit. It's basically a set of guidance and reports plus our software tool that we use. The software takes the data from mainly the ITU broadband maps, the mapping of the different connectivity features that we all saw in the last slide, but it works on a methodology that has been developed with all different stakeholders over the years. It takes into account actually implemented last mile connectivity solutions that have been submitted to ITU as a case study, and based on that a methodology has been prepared, and the software layer calculates the best possible solution in case of the availability of a particular technical solution, and also the cost that it has to implement that particular solution. We have been using this specifically in the Giga tool with the Giga project that I will just give you an example later on as well. It includes 4 steps. We identify the underconnected and underserved areas, review our options of connectivity solutions that are available, and cross-check according to the price and cost and the capex and also the sustainability issues, and then we go actually on the ground to implement that. So we have an estimation, and we could visualize what we are going to do even before when we start to implement. We have some usage scenarios for this in ITU. As I mentioned, that we are already using it in our projects like GIGAs and connecting the critical infrastructure, like for example hospitals, and also for smart village and smart islands in the e-government solutions. With the administration and sector members, we can see this as a tool because most of the data on the terrestrial maps is available in public domain, and also the toolkit is available. And we also work with development partners to see how we could work together in partnership to use this tool and implement the solutions. Finally, an example of how we are using this toolkit, the GIGA project that I mentioned is a global project that we have with UNICEF, and the idea is to connect the schools. We have good funding that is available now, and we have around 800,000 schools that are already mapped. As an example, you see here the map of Indonesia. In the map left above, you see the blue ones. They are the schools that have been mapped and which are outside the 4G coverage area, and the yellow ones are the ones that are within the mobile 4G coverage area. In the lower picture, you see the red ones that have a higher distance to the fiber cable connectivity node, and as we go towards the bluish color, they are much more near the connectivity that is available on the fiber. We have done this similar exercise for Kazakhstan and Kenya, and also for Sierra Leone. So this is the example. Thank you for your attention, and if you want to connect, we have the QR codes. Thank you.
To Amir for that informative talk. It's great to have people who are passionate about this topic joining us today and able to talk about connectivity across the region. Please continue to type in the chat any questions you have for our speakers so far, and we'll answer as many as possible. And I am now excited to introduce our next session. We have a panel discussion on the last mile broadband connectivity concerns and solutions. We have many esteemed speakers joining us today for that session. And I will first introduce our moderator, Osama Manzar. Osama Manzar is founder and director of the Digital Empowerment Foundation, where he works to eradicate information poverty from India and the Global South using digital tools. Started in 2002, the foundation currently has more than 1,000 locations and more than 9,000 digital supporters. Prior to establishing DE, Mr. Manzar worked in journalism, new media, and software enterprises. In addition to his work at DEF, Mr. Manzar is a social entrepreneur, author, columnist, impact speaker, and angel investor. He sits on several government and policy committees in India and on committees for international organizations working in areas of internet access, digital inclusion, and misinformation. Mr. Manzar is a British Chevening Scholar and was a fellow in the U.S. State Department's International Visitors Leadership Program. Thank you so much, Osama. We look forward to this great conversation.
Thank you so much, Christy. It's fantastic to see, and the stage has been very well set up by Komal and Dr. Tyagi and Amir. We are all set. May I also request our panel to come on the screen. I would like to invite Manik Mahmood from Bangladesh, who is the head of Social Innovation Cluster A2I. Manik, can you come on stage and introduce yourself? And at the same time, may I also invite Debashish and Anju.
Hi, Osama. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Manik Mahmood. I work in the A2I Bangladesh, and my designation is the head of Social Innovation Cluster, and I look after here the customers issue, the transform the government, the citizen-centric government, and I have the experience in working with the government, the innovation culture, and the last mile service delivery outlet. I started in UNDP, the career developing the piloting the digital center outline in ADOIN, which is now the digital center globally flagship program. Thank you, Osama.
Thank you, Manik. The more longer you will say that you have done something, the difficult question that you will have to reply in the panel. Thank you for joining. May I request Anju to, introduce yourself?
Thank you so much, Osama Bhai, for the opportunity to highlight the work we do to connect the unconnected and to address last mile connectivity. I think you should be taking my place to talk about the great initiatives that you and Digital Empowerment Foundation team are doing to connect the last mile. It's also nice to see Manik Bhai and Debashish and other colleagues. My name is Anju and I live in Fiji. I work with the Alliance for Affordable Internet, which is an initiative of the Web Foundation. I have been working in the Pacific and Asia Pacific region for 15 to 20 years on various initiatives, particularly on ICT and digital solutions. I've worked in the agriculture sector as well, rural development, did some work with education, persons with disabilities, and I'm really passionate about doing work with women and girls and focusing on cybersecurity and digital connectivity for everyone. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you, Osama.
Thank you, Anju, and be ready to tell the world that how A4AI is trying to make last mile connectivity cheaper, economical, better for the masses. Debashish.
Good evening. Thank you, Osama ji, and thanks to the organizers, SARDI, and also this great team of panel which is here. Anju, Manik, warm greetings from my side. I happen to be representing Mr. T.V. Ramachandran, who is the president of our association called Broadband India Forum. Now, what do? We are not a lobbying body or anything like that. Our basic aim is to promote the growth of broadband in a technology neutral, service neutral, and a completely agnostic manner. And we look at all possible ways of expanding the reach of broadband connectivity across the country, across India especially. A little bit about myself. Well, I've been with the industry, not so much from the policy and regulatory aspect, but more from the marketing aspect. I've looked at the industry for almost 3 decades prior to getting here, worked with a number of vendors and service providers before I got here. So it's been my passion now since the Digital India was announced by the government 6 years ago in 2015. I jumped onto this forum and now represent the forum in almost all the policy and regulatory discussions that go on. And we contribute regularly to the policy and regulatory landscape within the country, and through white papers, through conferences, through basically continuing the conversation and dialogue. And we are also representing we represented in a couple of committees with the government, especially in terms of promoting broadband. That's
so like everybody says that everybody says that the best diplomacy is not to do the push, but just talk sense, and it will automatically impact. Thank you, Debashish, and thank you, Manik, thank you, Anju, and thank you, SARDI and USAID and everybody for bringing us together here. I can see that there are 106 people watching us, and I'm sure all these 106 people are very important stakeholders who are listening us, and we are talking about last mile connectivity in an era which is affected by COVID, and which has actually, from the digital perspective, has highlighted the importance of digital connectivity. But having said that, it has also highlighted the deep digital divide that we all have been suffering from. So this panel discussion, we have about 50 minutes. I would request all 3 or 4 of us to be very crisp, very straightforward, and very short, so that we can do several questions and several point of view to discuss. And we are also watching the questions on the side, so that we can be you are aware that what is people looking for to listen. I will start with Manik from Bangladesh. In general, these days, for the last few years, Bangladesh is being shown as a young boy who is doing, or a young community who is doing extremely well through innovation and growth and per capita income and so on and so forth. But looking at last mile connectivity, it's not very encouraging number that we are seeing in Bangladesh. And Manik, you sit in an office which is very close to PMO or part of PMO. What is the last mile connectivity issue in Bangladesh that you are the most bothered about, because of which the development is not taking place or could have been faster?
Thank you, Osama. So you're correct. The government has started develop the broadband policy, and we are encouraging them to make it the citizen-friendly broadband policy. But how citizen-friendly? Anju is here, so FOI is working with the other partners. So few information I want to share you, which can help you to understand the status and a bit challenges, and then how the government is planning to recover to address this issue. That I will quickly state it. That few information I want to share for you. One is about education. 60% of secondary and 80% of primary level students don't have affordable and reliable access to internet, which is very challenging. And 43 million students and 1 million teachers need internet access for online or remote learning. This is status and at the same time the challenges. And COVID-19 has accelerated the uses of telehealth service up to 300%. In Bangladesh, the community centers, more than 10,000, but the most of them they don't have the internet access, and they are the last mile people, and they need the internet anyway. Otherwise, they cannot survive. The e-commerce market is currently worth $2 billion with a 200 e-commerce site, but most of the part, the last mile entrepreneurs are there. So they don't have the access, the status and the challenges. And Bangladesh has more than 650,000 IT freelancers, and as I know that the number is the second largest freelancing community in the world, and they are making more than $200 million, and there are 32.3 million active MFS accounts and average daily transaction about $2.1 billion. The challenges is, say in Bangladesh, 107 million people are subscribers, but only 9.8% they are ISP-based broadband subscribers, and 20%, 29, almost 30% citizens are excluded people. They don't have access to internet based on BTRC data. So this is a huge gap. Geographically covered as 4G is 95%, but only 28% people use 4G. And so those are the challenges. Now the government has taken some initiatives. One is
so Manik bhai, I will come back to you to discuss two things. I mean, you have shown the ground, you have shown the level of unconnected people and challenges. I would like you to tell us what will be the solution expected by you and how. But I will come back to you in the second round, and in the meanwhile, I'll go to Debashish.
Sure.
Debashish, in the couple of minutes, I mean, you certainly, your organization talk about broadband, and broadband is the language that has to become a mass language. There's no doubt about it, because COVID has highlighted very clearly that connectivity is just not enough. We need meaningful connectivity. We need broadband connectivity. We need, super fast connectivity to do our education, our health, our transaction, our e-commerce, and so on and so forth. What are you seeing are the big, huge challenge in India, where the broadband, the big Wi-Fi with unlimited connectivity is not reaching? What are the huge challenge?
Thank you, Osamaji. Let me start at the outset by repeating what you have just said. Today, internet connectivity is not enough. When we talk about connectivity, it has to be beyond just having internet access. You can access the internet even through the dial-up mechanism, but we are talking of always available, online, 24/7, affordable, available broadband connectivity. And broadband, when we say, it should be enough to take care, the bandwidth should be sufficient to take care of all your needs, which includes e-governance services, your basic information services like news and internet surfing. It must take care of your entertainment needs. It must take care of your educational needs, your health requirements. And now that since COVID came in, most of the telehealth measures have started kicking in. You don't go and meet the doctor anymore. You do it mostly online. The doctors also prefer that way. So there is a whole bunch of requirements which earlier used to be physical have now turned digital. And therefore the requirements and the bandwidth requirement and the capacity has multiplied several folds. And the bigger challenge, what you have also highlighted, and I'm going to draw from your statement, is that we don't need connectivity only within the metros. We need connectivity and the cities. We need to now take the connectivity beyond the metro, beyond the cities. And that means into the rural, remote, and even the difficult to reach areas. So we have a huge challenge to get there. If you look at the TRAI stats, basis July 2021, TRAI, incidentally, for folks who are not familiar with India, is the regulator, the telecom regulator. It's called the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. So it says that India today has about 808 million broadband customers, out of which about 22 million are fixed and the balance are on mobile. Most of the mobile customers we're talking about 4G connectivity. So if you look at it, primarily, these are not subscribers, unfortunately. These are connections. So which means if people like me and a few others who are in the urban areas, they can afford to have more than one connection. They can have maybe two connections. On an average, there would be about 500 million broadband customers today in a country which has 1.3 billion people. So that means very clearly 800 million today have not even had access to even a single broadband connection. So we have a long way to go. And what are the challenges? While fiber connectivity, and I'll come to a question that was raised, how do we get fiber to a furniture shop or furniture making area in West Delhi? I'll give you that example. I'll come to it maybe later if Osamaji permits me. But so the biggest challenge is to get the fiber in the towers to move into the rural areas. Dr. Tyagi spoke about 250,000 or 150,000. I don't know. I got a little confused about the figure. Towers which are in the rural areas. Now, 150,000 towers are not going to actually serve 650,000 villages, out of which only 250,000 are going to be connected over optical fiber. And hopefully they will get connected someday. We have reached only about 175,000. So hopefully we'll get that done in a short space of time. But to get the Prime Minister's clarion call implemented, which was made from the ramparts of the Red Fort on the 15th of August, the Independence Day last year, where he said, we'll put together in 3 years' time, we'll connect each and every village with optical fiber. Well, if you've seen the progress of way the optical fiber connectivity has reached 250,000 or reached 175,000 gram panchayats, or as we call it, community villages, we have taken 10 years to get here. So if you have to get to another 4.5 or 4 lakh villages, and that too in the deep rural and remote areas, in a 3 years' time, that's calling a lot. That's asking for a lot. To be able to do it with the same methodology as the way you've done it before, I think we'll have to probably spin the wheel differently. We'll have to probably ask for different policies, regulatory mechanisms, and different technologies. We'll have to look at options like beyond fiber and towers to be able to connect the balance 4 lakh villages. And therefore, my humble submission from Broadband India Forum is that we as a country must look at alternate technologies to get to areas which are difficult to connect with the help of optical fiber, to places where putting a tower is going to be a challenge over a water body or near to a water body. So those kind of things will be there. So how do we address that? There are alternate technologies. I will not get into that right now, but I will just leave the thought behind that there are technologies like satellite communications. Dr. Tyagi referred to it, but there's much more to satellite communications than what has been spoken and done so far in this country. There is a lot more to which can be done. There are alternate technologies like E and V band, which are wireless.
Thanks a lot, Debashish. We will talk about your technological idea in the next round.
Okay.
But I would also like to highlight that what I see in typical South Asian countries is it is not an issue of availability of infrastructure or willingness to availability of infrastructure and so on and so forth, but it is also about how do you innovate the idea of doing things from the matter of last mile connectivity. It is not a technological thing or something. It is more an issue of innovation around the idea. I will come to Anju. Anju, you may be able to highlight, because most of the unconnected people are in South Asia and Asia, and what are the situation in general here of unconnectivity and last mile connectivity issue?
Thank you, Osama. Everyone should benefit connectivity, particularly people that are struggling. Poverty is a huge issue, and if we think of connectivity for everyone, we need to consider people in low and middle income countries. As Debashish and Manik have highlighted already, and as you've already highlighted as well, the COVID situation has highlighted the digital divide between people who have access to the internet and people who don't, particularly in South Asia, Central Asia, East Asia, and the Pacific. We see more and more people left behind, and I can give you a great example. A week ago, I was working from a remote part of Fiji, and I wasn't able to connect to 4G. I was using 3G, and the average latency per milliseconds was around 120. But to my surprise, it was a lot faster than the 4G in the city when I pinged months ago. And I think it was largely due to congestion on the 4G network because of the COVID situation. The 3G services allowed me to have a good internet speed, and it allowed me to download documents, images, and have Zoom meetings, although it was slightly delayed. However, it was difficult for me to watch movies on Netflix. And in reality, the speed of 3G services can only reach up to maximum of 3 MB per second. So this is the reality for most people living in remote communities. They are on 2G to 3G, and they have to move around with their devices to get the best connectivity. When we talk about connectivity, we want to highlight the importance of meaningful connectivity, as Manik Bhai has already highlighted in his talk briefly. A4AI works to drive down the price of broadband and advocate for meaningful connectivity through policy and regulatory reforms. But what is meaningful connectivity? So meaningful connectivity is when you're able to get the right speed to watch online education videos from home and even a rural community. You are able to use affordable, appropriate devices and applications to access the internet and online resources. It also means that having enough data, so having cheap data plan to be able to access internet and the different applications like I mentioned, Netflix, or the ability to use the internet regularly without any disruptions. So the question is, do we all have meaningful connectivity, particularly in rural and remote communities where most have 2G connectivity or no connectivity at all? And what about the persons with disabilities who don't have affordable assistive devices or technologies? So when we talk about last mile connectivity, we need to think of the marginalized groups that are still struggling. And the other thing I wanted to mention is some of the challenges. I also want to focus on electricity challenges. For example, 70% of the population in Papua New Guinea don't have electricity. So the government is now working with partners to start the rural electrification project. And this would be a huge milestone if we are to connect the unconnected in remote parts of Papua New Guinea. So thinking about some ideas in terms of solution, we also need to think about, cross-sectoral or infrastructure business models in these countries. I'm going to leave it at this, and we can talk about a bit more about other things later. Osama, you're... Hello?
Yeah, Osama, you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Osama?
He's trying to unmute himself.
So when we talk about connectivity, I think the challenge is also technology.
Internet down. Hey, Osama, can you hear us? No?
Osama?
No, we're still not able to hear you.
Yeah,
I think you're on mute.
Okay,
Oh, got it.
Hi, everyone. We're working on getting this fixed really quick. It's not a webinar without at least one technical difficulty, so bear with us.
Maybe I'll continue, or Debashish or Manik, would you like to continue?
Okay, till Osama comes back.
Jumps in again.
Anju, you may
please.
continue if you wish.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah, let's continue.
Okay. Right. So
go ahead.
Okay. So Osama raised the question for me at the ending. So what are the solutions the Bangladesh is thinking about? Okay. So one is I said government is trying to do a citizen-friendly broadband policy, but what does it mean, the citizen-friendly? So if the government has many policies and guidelines, and they have many commitments, and by 2023, by 2030, etc. But how are the last mile people? So how about last mile entrepreneurs? How are the last mile students? How about the last mile teachers? So in that question, if we want to resolve this, so few things we need to do. So we're thinking, one, we think which we can learn from other countries. That is why very important this session. One is we need technological pilot. So we want to leverage the different technologies and combination of reliable cover unserved area for the PUD state. So we're trying to learn from A4 AI, Giga Project, and UN research we're talking. So this is one very important point. And then policy experimentation. We need to ensure equitable broadband for all, including social obligations, fund and other innovation funding schemes, and one-to-one fixed cost and recurring monthly charges for the data. And regulatory sandbox. So we're trying to do so that we can make the public-private partnership with with knowledge from the other countries and in our country with the different stakeholders. And the government is trying to make sure the affordable internet for different initiatives, so we can encourage.
Manik, am I audible?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, my mute button and unmute button was just not taking my instruction. Anyway, Manik, I want to know very straightforward, and I would not have asked this question if you're not sitting on a decisive seat. How do we actually connect 10,000 community centers that you have all across the country that you said they are not even having a proper community internet connectivity, and they are at last mile? The reason I will tell you why I'm saying this is that in India, we at Digital Empowerment Foundation and with Komal and USAID and SARDI also, we have tried to experiment one thing, is that how do we create last mile entrepreneurs who understand the meaning of last mile connectivity, who take the responsibility in their own hands. That's very, very important, because somehow telcos have not been able to connect the last mile. Somehow government has not been able to transform their policy into creating last mile connectivity as a functional connectivity. So it seems like community have to take a step, MSMEs will have to take a step, and so on and so forth. So Manik Bhai, how do we connect those 10,000 with your help and available technology like community or satellite or fiber or and there are so many. I mean, please tell me what is a big hindrance to do that?
Very short answer. Very short answer. Government has different plan to reach the broadband to up to union level. So we have 5,000, 8,000 digital center countrywide in the local government last year union position. So all the unions will be covered under broadband connectivity within 2023, and from the union Porishad will be the connecting point for the community health clinic and schools and other things, and that's why we need the partnership and piloting and the public-private partnership for how the ISP and other telcos and other can jointly. That's we are discussing in the government, and A4A is there. That is the answer. Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So what we have seen when we talk about last mile connectivity, do you see connectivity as an infrastructural challenge? Do you see connectivity as a technical challenge? Do you see connectivity as a business challenge or economic challenge or a financial challenge? And I think it's a combination of all four. We think that it is a specialized job of telco. We think it's a specialized offering from the government. We think that it's a very specialized offering which can come from some institutional offering rather than taking our account. Whereas we all know in all the countries, MSME is the largest sector, is the biggest sector, which actually takes the load of the economy. It's not the stock market which take the loads of economy. And therefore, it seems that we have failed to transform or convert last mile connectivity from being a technical and financial and infrastructural issue to become a household issue or like a economic issue or a social and behavioral issue. Now, at this time of COVID, not being connected is exclusion, because your life is dependent on it. For health perspective, from education perspective, from rights perspective, you are literally excluded if you are not connected. And therefore, Debashish, how do we fast forward this? How do we fast forward this? We cannot make half the world unconnected for the next 10 years.
Agree. Difficult question, many solutions. It has to be a collaborative effort to begin with. I don't think just to depend on the government alone to find a solution is perhaps correct. Though so far, based on the past experience that we have, and as you rightly spelled out, the telcos are not willing to go to those areas to bridge the digital divide. Yeah. So we need to find a collaborative solution, which is a win-win for everyone, which is for the government, for the telco, also for the MSMEs who will deliver the last mile services, because we know the telcos can bring the pipe up to a certain point. They will perhaps not want to go to the last mile, especially in the rural, remote, and geographically challenged terrains. They may not want to go there. So we would need to find innovative solutions by way of involving the MSMEs. And here, VLE, which is a model which has been adopted by the government of India, Ministry of Electronics and IT, and implemented on the ground by CSCs, Common Service Centers, is perhaps a way forward. It's one of the ways in which the an entrepreneur can be involved. Another way, what we can think of is, we have in Government of India today, we have launched on 9th of December last year, the government launched through the cabinet approval a PM Vani scheme, which is basically a public Wi-Fi enablement scheme. And that scheme involves, in fact, it is a very simplified form of a regulatory and policy driven exercise to spread or proliferate Wi-Fi across the country. It does not involve taking any license, does not involve paying any license fees. It's a simple mechanism based on an architecture that has been tried and tested since 2017 by TRAI first, and then by a number of entrepreneurs, after which the government took a step to announce it as a national kind of initiative, which can then help in proliferation of Wi-Fi, every public Wi-Fi across the country. If you look at the government's national policy, the NDCP, National Digital Communications Policy, announced in 2018, the government has laid down very, very ambitious targets, which at that time didn't look so ambitious, which was 5 million public Wi-Fi hotspots by 2020, which is the year which has gone by. We won't even look at it where we are. But the next target is to achieve 10 million public Wi-Fi hotspots by 2022, which is barely a year away. I will not get into the details as to where we are and why we are what we are doing. But yes, the opportunity that it presents, the NDCP presents before us, is huge. And the government.
So, Debashish, I would like to just interject and try to bring in something very interesting. Like you said, government announced PM Vani. Great. It's a great policy. It's a great program which actually liberates the last mile connectivity from licensing.
Yes.
Great. There is no doubt about it. But if you go to PM Vani portal, you will see that not many people have signed up as it would have been the case, because there is no licensing, there is no fees, there is nothing, and yet not many organizations coming forward or individuals coming forward to become a service provider or a service seekers or something like that. Why? That is, why means I'm asking question to ourselves. What I feel is that we are very good at creating infrastructure, we are very good at creating policies, but we don't know how to contextualize the policy. For example, COVID taught me that out of 1.5 million schools, 80% of do not have internet connectivity, or 70 to 80% do not have internet connectivity, and a very high number, more than 60-70%, do not even have a computer lab. Now, should we not make PM Vani compulsory for education ministry or education sector? Should we not make PM Vani compulsory by MSME? Should we not make compulsory PM Vani by the Ministry of Health, that all the health centers, all the community health centers and public health centers at the grassroots level should adopt PM Vani module, make it entrepreneurial, get the connectivity, become audiovisual, and provide doctors online or teachers online or the transactions online. So that is where I think is that we are still led by telco as a ministry, telecom as a ministry, or the IT as a ministry, rather than every ministry becomes responsible for last mile connectivity for their own sector. for their own people, for their own masses. And that is the reason why I would come to Anju to say that why we are also not pushing at a global level the same methodology, because most of the unconnected country have a similar kind of problem. Do you think that A4AI could take up policy which is beyond just economicalization or the or the cost, but it is also related to access as a responsibility to make it happen in different sectors?
Yes, Osama, I would like to say that it's not about technology, but it's about people and the process and also the right policies. I'll talk about it from a policy point of view. We need rural broadband policy frameworks and a broadband policy in place to connect humanity by 2030. In the next 9 years, we need around $428 billion in infrastructure investment. So we need collaborative partnership to allow cost-sharing infrastructure business models to extend connectivity to the last mile and to enable key stakeholders to work together to bring down the cost of internet and also implement solutions in rural communities. One good example is the use of public Wi-Fi access points and also community networks. And you've already done a lot of work in the region. And it's also really good, amazing work. But if you want to have community networks, we also need to consider the policy and regulatory frameworks to enable community networks to be sustainable in the rural communities. As you are already aware, A4AI and various partners like Digital Empowerment Foundation, APC, Association of Progressive Communications, Facebook, CIPESA, developed the Rural Broadband Policy Framework, bringing access to broadband in rural and remote communities. It highlights policy examples to find solutions. For example, women and girls or persons with disability have previously been unable to work outside the home, but can now engage in telework, like some of you have said, because of the COVID situation. Similarly, giving access to skilled workers and small firms in rural areas allow them to trade their services in global markets. And you talked about key partners and players. It's also important to establish and implement effective universal access funds and social obligation funds to support investments in underserved rural communities. And I think we need to continuously monitor the progress and create accountability for policy leaders, but also for these key players that are meant to be working towards bridging the digital divide. And I'll give you a good example. Today, we had a great multi-stakeholders task force meeting to progress the work on the Bangladesh broadband policy work. It was led by Bangladesh Telecommunication Regulatory Commission in partnership with A2I. Manik Bhai was there representing A2I. We had a diverse group of stakeholders from civil society, academia, public and private sector, and education. They all came together to talk about how do we achieve the key targets set towards the new broadband policy. And I will just leave it at that we may have differences, we may have challenges, but if we don't keep working together and realistically work together, I don't think we will be able to reach the last mile connectivity.
Okay, now we have lots of questions. I will ask before we wrap up. We have 1 minute for
Osama,
all of us before we get I will come to you. I want you to say in one sentence, what do you think we should do? One thing that will connect us quickly, Manik.
About?
Last mile connectivity. What would be one thing that you would like to do or to be done to have a quick last mile connectivity available to the people in your country?
One is, Anju mentioned, so pushing and encouraging to the government to make it really citizen friendly, and we're trying to find the citizens and stakeholders the demand, and we're trying to connecting the dots. That's it.
Okay, Debashish.
My buzzword is collaboration between government, industry, MSMEs, and the citizens. Success. No mandation, please.
Same.
Okay, so you are certainly asking government to go beyond telcos and go to other stakeholders to make it happen. Anju, one last thing.
I think everyone should really understand what the reality is in rural communities. If you want to connect the rural communities, go to the rural communities and figure out what is really happening there. Policies, regulatory practices are great, But I think we really need good practices and good examples. So I think working across the different sectors and bringing in the financial institutes, particularly to connect the last mile. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, wonderful. Now we have dedicated 15 minutes to totally listen to the people who are asking questions. And among some of the questions which is in front of them, and I would also like all of you to read those, is that give us some very good example of rural connectivity in your area. Everybody is asking that. I have a lot of example, but I don't want to grab the stage all the time. Manik, do you have a very good example of last mile rural connectivity?
Not really, but we're trying to do, because we're trying to learn. So that's why I mentioned that technology piloting and sandbox practice, and so that we can learn from EU, from India, and other countries. So we're trying to do. But
okay, so on behalf of Manik, I would like to give one example that Digital Empowerment Foundation, us, we are talking to BRAC to do the last mile connectivity pilot in some of the village areas with community centers using community network formula. Where we create a local community person trained and build the connectivity himself or herself and run a community center with connectivity. So we are certainly very interested in those 10,000 locations to do some good job. But more about this, maybe we can bilaterally talk, and maybe we can involve A2I also to do that pilot, because I remember when A4AI, DEF, and you, we were talking about 3-4 years back about the framework of broadband connectivity with A2I, we talked about doing some pilot. It's time that we must do those pilots very quickly. Debashish, do you have a very quick example of rural connectivity which you think can be replicated, and so people want to hear some anecdote or story?
Well, I'm of the opinion that there is no single one kind of a model which will be applicable to all kinds of rural areas. Each rural situation and scenario is different from the other, and you must cut your coat according to your cloth. And therefore, I believe there will be multiple solutions. And that's why there is no, unlike the mobile communications industry, where just the 2G, 3G, and the 4G technology actually enabled the technology revolution and provided mobile connectivity to all. Broadband connectivity cannot be with a single technology. You'll have to have multiple technology. You'll have to have a mix of fiber, towers, satellite, Wi-Fi, E and V bands, maybe in some cases even point to multipoint satellite, point to multipoint microwave, and perhaps even in some cases you may like to have what is called the FSOC technology, which is free space optics, which provides you laser beam connectivity to connect 2 points from one side to the other, and can move over 10 kilometers. So there are multiple solutions that you need to address rural connectivity issues, because they are not similar to each other. That's
okay. So I have a couple of examples from India, which Anju also tried to indicate again and again. One is, how do we make technology give in the hands of the people, and through community network as a philosophy. Community network is nothing where you say that by the community, for the community, and with the community. So it's basically training and working with local community to understand what is towering, what is connectivity, what is Wi-Fi, what is internet, but in a very local language. And we have done almost about 250 location connectivity, all being run by the local community, where they have used even bamboo towers, and we have done pipe towers, we have used triangular towers and all those kind of things. But they have not invented internet. They have just bought the internet where it is available, and they have taken through Wi-Fi from there to somewhere else. where they need it by using free spectrum or open spectrum or unlicensed spectrum, and all legal. And this is possible to do. Now, the second example I would like to give is of USAID and SARDI. What we are doing is that we are taking it to the next level, where we are training 10,000 women, actually 20,000 women, to learn what is Wi-Fi, to learn what is internet, and actually use it as an entrepreneurial opportunity. So the objective and the focus is very much that this is to earn money. This is to solve the problem of connectivity to do your job. This is not primarily a job of being connected, but connectivity as a means to do your last mile requirement. But I mean, there are many examples. I could have shared hundreds of videos here, and you would have been crying in some cases. But I just thought that to give those examples, I am trying to tell. But Anju, do you have any example like that?
There's lots of examples, but I don't want to take the limelight away from the people that have been doing amazing work in their countries. But one thing I do want to mention is the satellite initiative, particularly the one that Pacific is deploying in Indonesia and the Pacific. This is the high-speed broadband and also Pacific broadband satellite. So they're providing a lot of this connectivity in these rural and remote communities, particularly because the islands are quite dispersed. So they're providing good quality, affordable internet to some of these remote islands in like Eastern Indonesia, also PNG and other countries. But I just wanted to highlight one thing that you mentioned, Osama, in terms of digital skills, which is very important, because when you eventually get connected or have access to internet, you need digital skills. And I just wanted to give a quick example. Few weeks ago, I was trying to teach a 9-year-old in a remote community how to use Facebook Messenger, which was set up by her grandmother. Because of the COVID situation, teachers are now using Facebook Messenger in Fiji. And now they're being asked to use Google Classroom to go online with their students. So connectivity was fine, but the 9-year-old was finding it difficult to use the Facebook Messenger to do video calls. And then a week later, she was asked to use Google Classroom, and the teachers were finding it difficult to teach the kids how to use Google Classroom. They were also sharing login details to the messenger, which poses a security issue because the information was visible to all. So it reminded me how difficult it must be for teachers and students to learn new technology or new digital skills, but also considering cyber skills while you're learning how to use a new technology. I mean, even for adults, it's difficult to switch from one tool to another if you don't have digital literacy. And I still don't use TikTok, which is probably a good thing. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Yeah, okay, that's really wonderful. Actually, it's very interesting that you said all that, and we have not been able to apply. I think what we need to all of us. Okay. Oh, okay. There is a question. Somebody wanted to know Jharkhand. When we will get similar kind of connectivity in Jharkhand. I must tell anybody, the person who is asking that question, is that PM Vani and Bharatnet is available in Jharkhand. But if you also want to take connectivity in your hands, maybe you can get in touch with us, and we will guide you how to talk to CSC also to get in touch with the local CSC VLE to provide the connectivity at a local level. And there is Air Jaldi also, who provides connectivity in Jharkhand, which is very interesting. So please get in touch, and we'll be happy to help you to do that. But one thing that I must tell you is that out of several examples that we discussed, there is technology, and there is no regulation that is binding on you to connect. All you need to do is very strongly think that why do you need connectivity, and can from your area a person can take responsibility to bring that connectivity to your place. Don't depend on government, don't depend on telco, don't depend on anything, don't depend on us. But you can get in touch with us and we will tell you how to do it. That's what, because there are free spectrum, there are open spectrum, there is PM1E as a policy, there is Bharatnet as an infrastructure, and then there are Airtels and Geos, and everybody is at least available 10 to 20, 30 kilometers within the place that you are existing. It's a matter of last mile, that how do you bring that particular connectivity on your doorstep. And you don't need to individually bring it. You can always bring it as a community and take ownership as a community. That's what will solve our problem. Anything else that I have missed it? Any question? Moderators, anybody who's like to help us to find something that we may have missed?
I hate to cut it short. I think that there are a few more questions that we haven't gotten to, but we also need to move on just to our last speaker to give the closing remarks. Thank you so much to our panelists and to Osama for moderating this wonderful panel.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Manik. Thank you, Anju. Thank you, Devashish.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I'll introduce our closing speaker now. We have Harry Kriz, General Development Officer with USAID Indo-Pacific Office. Harry is a General Development Officer where he focuses on increasing trade and investment, leveraging emerging technologies, and improving regulatory environments. He's previously served with USAID in Guatemala and Honduras, and has worked in the private sector in a variety of roles, including as mergers and acquisitions investment banker and corporate positions in finance and marketing. Harry, thank you for joining us and for closing us off.
Thank you very much, Christy. And I want to thank all of our panelists today. They shared great information on last mile connectivity. To highlight, there are two kinds of connectivity gaps: the usage gap, people with internet connectivity but do not have the resources to use it, and the connectivity gap, people who have no connectivity at all. In South Asia, the last mile connectivity issues persist. Most living in remote communities are still using 2G and 3G technologies. In education, most students and teachers don't have appropriate internet access to support learning opportunities. And in e-commerce, last mile connectivity issues hamper economic growth. The COVID situation has highlighted the connectivity gap, with the lack of connectivity being an exclusion from society and the economy, with MSMEs being the most impacted businesses from COVID. There's a demand for data consumption in rural areas, especially by younger internet users. And when we say connectivity, what do we mean? We need meaningful broadband connectivity. What is meaningful connectivity? The right speed, accessed with affordable devices under an affordable data plan, always available online 24/7. So that one can access e-government services, information services, fulfill their entertainment needs and education needs, and meet their health requirements. Fortunately, competition of wired, wireless, and satellite connectivity options are helping to keep prices down, but we really need broadband policy frameworks to connect people by 2030. We heard some examples, the government of India emphasizing inclusion of every citizen in the country to access quality internet. The GOI is working on an optical fiber network to connect every village in the country. The pace of urbanization may actually slow down as more is done on the internet in rural areas, and there's an opportunity to create millions of jobs. The government of Bangladesh is pursuing citizen-friendly internet policies, which should increase access in rural areas. And in summary, connecting the last mile is a collaborative effort. We need to find win-win solutions involving the government, private sector, and the MSMEs that will deliver the last mile services. So again, thanks to everyone for your presence and participation today. And with that, I turn it back over to you, Christy.
Thank you so much, Harry. And thank you everyone for being a part of this event today. We ask that you kindly take a few minutes to provide your feedback by completing the SARDI Dialogue Series survey, which will pop up on a window on your screen as you're leaving, and we'll paste that in the chat box as well. We also will paste our team's contact info in the chat in case you would like to reach out to us for more information about SARDI or about the other programs you've heard today. And we we'll plan on sending a follow-up email next week as well that will have a recap of both of our SARDI Dialogue events, last week's event and today's event, to share with everyone. And with that, we will close out. Have a wonderful evening or a wonderful day, depending where you are. And thank you again for joining.